Here we go. Thank you, everybody. Now, we recognize we are slightly late as a collective. Obviously, if you check the chat history, I've not pointed the finger and blamed anyone in particular. That didn't happen. And my Twitter, I can just delete the tweet, so it's fine. Don't go and look at the tweet. But I just wanted to show off that I call you Babe Griff, like, all the time.
That is a peek behind the overload curtain.
Yeah,
Maddie,
just
Ty, and I are all.
that extra detail. Oh, see, people are angry. Ganos says, "WTF, Griff."
This is me. This is who I am. Take it or leave it. So.
So, chat, I was sort of engaging with you. Maybe next time I could go live and do like a Matthew mailbag. But then I imagine I'll be the one who's late.
Maddie, mailbag chat. Good to see you guys too. Maddie, I got a question for you. What's your favorite? What's your favorite citrus fruit?
Ooh, now
Isn't that a riveting topic?
that is a riveting topic. We could spend about an hour on that, but it is 3:25 a.m. Let me just sip my coffee.
What are some citrus fruits?
Well, immediately my mind would just go to the basic orange. Ultimately, I haven't. Do you have oranges in America?
Yeah, no, we have oranges for sure.
Outside of Florida?
Let's go through the list, okay, of options.
Well, hold on now.
We've got grapefruits, a sweet orange, a kumquat, clementine, a kaffir lime. This is just off the top of my dome. A blood orange, a finger lime, a rangpur, a lemon, a citron, a satsuma mandarin, a calamansi, a Meyer lemon, a bergamot orange, a sweet lemon. You've also got a cabuso. Don't forget about those, and the pepita, of course.
This is
the
incredible
myrtle-leaved orange
knowledge.
tree,
knowledge,
and the Hayuganatsu, and the Oro Blanco, and the Orangello.
Of
also,
course,
you've got
how
the
could you forget
Kawachi
the Oro Blanco?
Don't forget the Citrus Cavaliere or something.
I won't forget
Jabara,
that.
Citrus Depressa, Diamante Citron, the rough lemon, the tangerine, the Campai, the Pompia. So, Maddie, just like rank all those for me really quick.
I was going, you felt the need to list them all out, but I don't have that kind of list in my head. My mind immediately went towards an orange because I have an orange a day, and orange juice is very nice. But I'm more of a savory person, right? And I wouldn't have oranges in many savory dishes. I know it's a thing, but I wouldn't. Whereas a lemon can really change things and add a crucial bit of acid at the end of a dish, and lighten things up, freshen things up. And lemon in desserts like lemon sorbet, lemon meringue pie, like a lemon mousse, is delicious and was my granny's favorite sort of thing. A lemon posset, lemon curd.
Oh, okay.
She would have like jars of lemon curd, which were from like 1938.
So you're big into that application. That's really cool, though.
Thanks,
actually,
man.
like being
so
sincere
cool.
for a second. As for me, I'm partial to sudachi.
But could you describe the flavor of that? You keep glancing down. Have you got one?
It's kind of a personal question, Maddie.
What does it feel like in your mouth?
It feels fine. Right up in there. It's pleasurable.
How did you pronounce that again?
Sudachi.
Where does that come from, Griff?
Again, you're asking me really personal questions right now. I'm just sharing with you that I enjoy this piece of citrus fruit, and
just a piece, not the whole thing.
Different places. It's a little sour, and I like to use it as food flavoring in place of a lemon or a lime sometimes.
For real? This is a thing. How do I spell that?
Of course, Sudachi. and I'm known to use it as food flavoring in the place of a lemon or lime.
And they sell that in
The store,
yeah. Did
the
you
Sudachis.
mention yuzu? I don't think you did.
I don't know. Did that not
I
make
think you
my
missed out
list?
yuzu.
I guess. Well, it's hard to
Very
remember
weird.
all of
I
them.
mean, when you're doing it off the top of your head, you would leave
Right.
things off your list.
Sure. No, that makes sense. Yeah, it makes sense that I would forget one of them.
It happens.
Yeah. Okay.
I
My
don't know
attention
about my
span
lemon
has
answer. I'm
been
kind of.
used up.
I really like limes. Like if you have a pint of gin and tonic, like putting a lime in there is really nice.
All right. Are you partial to lemonade or limeade?
Oh, lemonade.
Honestly, once you have limeade, it's hard to go back.
So I hear what you're saying, but like I like a mojito with lime in, right? But limeade, it really has to be natural because I mean, lemon's the same, but lime in particular can smell a bit like, oh, we might have a pronunciation thing here. You know, when you go to a urinal.
What?
A urinal?
Bullshit. You don't say urinal. No way.
I do say urinal.
No, you don't.
I do.
How do you say urine?
Urine.
Then why the hell are you saying urinal?
Because it's anal.
Well, you jacking right now.
Thinking of other anal words, you know, there are probably other different pronunciations that we'd come across.
All
but
right,
anyway,
I actually see where you're going with that.
Limeade does, it does sometimes taste like toilet disinfectant, the smell of that. Not that I've drank bleach.
Or I mean, I've drank bleach and I can confirm that it doesn't taste like that. But but a lot of that, you know, there's very lemony scents too.
No, I know. And my point is, I guess I haven't had a good limeade.
I see. I mean, I just get the Minute Maid stuff. Do you guys have Minute Maid over there?
No,
Do they ship that across
I'm familiar
the
with the
pond?
brand.
Okay, what's the number
one? They made
one?
their money out of a baseball park, didn't they? And then they started to make orange juice after. Is that correct?
There might be a chicken or the egg situation going on there. I'm not sure.
Right. Okay.
What's the number one orange juice, lemonade, limeade brand over there?
There's this thing called Innocent. Well, it's not limeade, but there's just a brand called Innocent Smoothies, who their big thing was like, we're innocent. There's nothing bad in us.
Cool.
Tropicana.
That's funny because it's probably shipped from a tropical region.
Well,
and if you want to unearth historical politics there, it's probably not so innocent. Anyway,
I mean, Tropicana, I believe, is from Florida. No.
Yeah, but anyway, this is not the geopolitical overload podcast. This is the Seattle overload
Griff.
podcast.
But before we go live, we've got a great question and a donation.
That's very well. Shouldn't we answer? That is very generous of him. Shouldn't we answer that? Majumbo, you were very close.
Majumbo, don't. No, let's not do this.
Matty is a guilty conscience. Let's not hammer that home right now. But Matty, we should answer that question when the podcast starts because it's pertinent and not everyone listens to the preamble. So hit it, Matty.
Oh, I have to hit it.
And hit it.
That's right. I'm so good at hitting it. Welcome to the Seattle Overload podcast, where it's almost the end of bye week. We're going to look ahead to the Cincinnati Bengals tomorrow with a special guest. But first, the bye week break has given Griff and I an opportunity to kind of review where the Seahawks are at in their 2023 season after 4 games, after being 3-1, and after having, a quarter kind of the season. Such a shame there's now 17 games, so we can't see that. And we're going to look at, if anything's changed with how we feel about the team, the outlook. And then we'll look at sort of some offense data, some defense data to kind of address issues, address positives, negatives, some surprises, and then kind of explore and give our opinions on, can they get better? Will they regress? Etc. Etc. But first, we have some people to thank. First of all, thank you very much for the kind donation on our video that was received on our breakdown with Mike Dugar. Very much appreciated. Let me actually find that, Griff. Ty, you can edit this out. I'm distracted by...
This is this is the benefit to watching live, because you get to see our behind the scenes process.
It's very... Steve Ferrone, thank you. Steve Ferrone kindly donated and said thanks when it came to our Mike Dugar discussion. So thank you, Steve. I've given you a love heart. And Chris Otto, which this is why I'm distracted. Chris has kindly donated $10 and said, thank you all for the content. Could you explain Cover 3 Soft Sky? Was it pioneered by Pete Carroll? Chris, what a question. Now, Griff, do you wanna take that, or?
Well, so first, when we say, is it pioneered by him? I mean, it's Cover 3, right? It's Cover 3 Cover 3 has existed forever. Surely no person alive today has invented what we know as Cover 3. But first, starting with Cover 3, it's three deep defenders, your outside corners, one deep middle safety, and then 4 underneath zone defenders, and you distribute those zones semi-evenly. When they say sky, that's referring to the rotation, meaning if you have 2 safeties, but only one of them is deep, one is low or down, that's usually the strong safety. So of those 4 zones, which zone is he inserted to? So if he's rotated or inserted down to one of those 4, one of the 2 outside zones, that is called Cover 3 sky rotation, because it's alliterative. So sky starts with S, safety starts with S. So if to the side of the rotation, if he's in an outside zone, it is Cover 3 sky. If he's in the hook, which would be the middle rotation or interior rotation, it would be Cover 3 buzz, because that means the guy next to him on the outside is a linebacker. Backer is alliterative with buzz, B for buzz. So safety in the hook, Cover 3 buzz, safety in the flat or the curl flat, Cover 3 sky. As far as what soft sky is, it's a way of matching 2 verticals. So if you're prevented with the threat of 4 verticals, 2 receivers on one side, 2 on the other, and you only have 3 deep safeties, the fundamental question that any Cover 3 team has to answer is, what do you do if all 4 go vertical? You have to account for that second seam or that 4th vertical. So Matty, from there you can take it if you want. What do they do with that down safety?
Yeah, real quick, you might hear people talk about playing with Sky Force, or which is the safety force, or Cloud Force. So when teams say Cover 3 Sky, not only is that telling them what type of rotation they're doing, but it's also telling them, like this end here, I'm going to have a safety coming down to my outside, and the safety's going to make me right. Whereas, like, if it was Cloud, then he'd know the corner's going to make me right on this side. So it's to do with where the extra help is arriving in the run game as well. Now, as Griff said, when it's a 2x2 formation like we see here, and this image is from my article on this, which I did for USA Football a while ago, it's a 2x2 formation. So here's a receiver, here's a tight end, here's a receiver, here's a tight end. And as Griff said, the way to beat Cover 3 is the 4 verts. And why does that beat Cover 3? Because this middle safety has a deep third. You cannot ask him to play both seams successfully, because especially in the NFL, a quarterback will stare at this seam, the safety will merge over here, he'll ping it to the other seam. If these routes are run correctly on the outside, that safety can't cover both vertical seams. His job is to stop seams, but he can't cover 2 at one time. It's too difficult. Jen, I will remove the yellow banner. There you go. You can now see that. Okay, so 2x2, that's how you're going to get 4 verts, because if this H was in the backfield, then you only have 2x1. And so let me get my pen out. 2x1, can they run 4 verts from a 2x1 formation? No, they definitely can't run 2 verts from a 2. Say he doesn't exist.
Only 3 guys on the line of scrimmage, so
they can only run this. So can we ask this safety to play to his seam? Yes, we can. But unfortunately for the defense here, they get 2x2, so this can happen.
I'm not sure that your drawings are showing on the screen.
They're not. That's really weird. Let me fix that, chat. My apologies.
Chat, clip that. Chat, clip Matty's mistake.
Clip that.
Clip
Matty
that,
exposed. Let me just 1 second. Share. Whole screen. Right, here we go, chat. So now you should be able to see my my drawing. There we go. So that would be a 2x1 formation.
And pretend he's in the backfield.
He can run a seam. The 3 safeties able to physically play to that seam. He could run and he could run. So we've got 3 deep people. So we don't need anyone else. But unfortunately, in this scenario, as we've been talking about, that is 2x2, isn't it? There's 1. There's 1, 2, 1, 2. So all of these guys could run vertical, and we only have 3 deep players to play it. So this safety could get looked off here, and then the ball is thrown into this spot here. So how do we do this? Well, Pete Carroll's way of doing it is for the 3 safeties rule to be no seams, no posts, but he will lean in his drop 60-40 to the first seam route. So where's the pen? Goodness. So, and the other thing, the other rule that he has is the strong safety will match the number 2. So if he gets a seam route, he will carry the seam route deep. So essentially, the free safety knows the strong safety's on this side. So his number 2 is here. It's 2x2 pre-snap formation alert. So seam alert. And the free safety will then, in his drop, lean if he gets a seam 60-40, which isn't as great as it is as it's drawn there. It's more like this. It's not playing in the middle. It's playing in like a lean and weave in here. And if the quarterback looks him there, then he'll lean even more to this sort of seam route down here. So essentially, if they get 4 verts, the coverage almost looks like man over here and then kind of like quarters here. So they're putting 4 people deep. But if this guy goes flat, then this guy just plays his zone. The free safety might still be leaning over to the number 2, but yeah.
At that point, he's playing the seam of the H's number 2, and then if that eliminates, then he's looking for the post from either number 1 receiver, and then at that point, if there's no post, the play's probably dead at that point, or is rallying to the ball, helping rally to the ball, and the underneath. The standard way, well, the way they did it last year and the way a lot of teams do it is they will have both slot defenders. So if you imagine the Sam in this picture, the S, if he was a nickel and say the offense was an 11 personnel, so 1 running back, 1 tight end, 3 receivers, they would have both slot defenders carry and the free safety would play more true middle. Pete only really has, with the exception of last year, and they went back to their old way this year for the most part, they just have the down safety carry the one side, and then as Matty said, they spot drop to the other side and then have the free safety lean. What they can do, though, Matty, is that hang buzz technique, right? Where the buzz dropper to the field, so if the ball's on the hash, which is often what we see, right? If he's to the field, he his landmark changes. So instead of pushing to the numbers and getting underneath the X receiver or the number one, he pushes more to, instead of outside the numbers, he then pushes kind of inside the numbers and then hinges open or hangs open and then expands. It gets depth underneath that seam. So they can still get like double top-down coverage on the seam route from the slot receiver side, opposite the tight end side. But he's still available to have zone eyes on the check down, have zone eyes on the quarterback, and also melt under inbreakers for the number one. So they can do they game plan that week to week. So in a vein, it keeps them more versatile in the aggregate, I think, even though it's less aggressive, perhaps.
Yeah, what I'd say as well is like, if you don't, I mean, I can't really draw up what Griff's talking about there, the hang buzz, but if you just Twitter search, and I appreciate some of you got rid of Twitter, but you could search it on Google and it would come up, I think, hang buzz. Just Twitter search that with Griff's name at CMike Spin Move, hang buzz in the quotation marks. It will come up with a video. Same thing for Soft Sky. And Chris, you asked about Seam Alert. Same thing for Seam Alert. It will come up. Now, before I talk about Seam Alert in a different sense, Cam has made a great point.
Yep.
What about if the running back goes flat and the strong safeties carry the Y? So say they run this, the strong safeties matched up here, the free safeties leaning over here. Well, that's why, and the corners run off here. You're exactly right. That's a beta here. Now, Seattle in their day, they had abilities to get pressure with 4, and so teams would often keep the running back in, or he'd check and then release out. So you wouldn't get him fast to the flat. But the whole point of this is, it is a weakness, which is why it says alert, flat. This player here has to be alert to the fact that this guy's getting run off if this is vertical, if it's drop back. So really, he needs to sort of widen with this. If the back's fast 3, he needs to widen with it and get to it more quickly. That's the soft spot of the coverage. And if you go on my Twitter and search at Matty F. Brown, quotation mark Shanahan, close quotation mark soft quotation mark Soft Sky, close quotation mark. Shanahan beat this by play actioning with the back in the gun here, like stretch play actioning like this, which is an extra bind, then showing this, having the safety run off. It might have been the other way, actually. The back might have been here. But anyway, this guy got sucked up and they just dumped it into the flat, and it's like easy yardage.
Mm-hmm. Right. And week to week, depending on what different offenses do, they can game plan a fast 3 versus a slow 3 differently. We've seen them in the past where when the back is releasing to the flat and fast, like immediately off the snap, his first step is to the flat. They'll have the strong safety zone off and like sail, right? Play top down. Because what you get is the wide tight end ends up kind of running an out route or a corner route or a banana route, right? Like spider 2-eye banana. So he'll sail, hinge open, and play top down, meaning gaining depth underneath the tight end while still relating to the running back's width and being prepared to play that. Otherwise, if he is carrying 2 no matter what, then as Cam asked, and as you just said, the will in this picture as the weak hook, the near hook, he'd have to take that guy to the flat, and that would be his initial key, at least in coverage.
A way that, so a lot of the times that this guy's fast is when the formation's into the boundary. So say the ball's here and the tight end's here, and immediately they'd probably call off the seam alert, and there'd be formation in boundary alert, and then they'd sail with this guy or push through with this guy as well, and they'd be more aggressive to it. The whole point of the cover 3 is, like, I mean, a lot of people like to speak about how like Pete Carroll's old system was just like drop into an area and visioning stuff, but really it was more the formation and like team tendencies telling you everything. So this being a 2x2 set, so we need to be alert to the seam, and we're going to match certain routes with certain players.
Right.
If it's to the boundary like we're talking about, then we're going to do something else.
Right. And if
and our techniques will change with how we play it. So
right. Like if they're in shotgun here and the running back is to one side versus the other, if he releases to his side that he's aligned on fast, and say that one of the number 2 guys is running an over route or something in breaking, then the backside hook defender has to man turn and get man eyes on that guy and match that route. And then all of a sudden it's like a 3-by, it's like trips basically. And they handle it that way. So that's the other like main match element. So in that picture, the will would then have to open to the H and leverage him. If it was the other way around, if the F went to the left, the running back went to the left, the Mike would have to open to the Y, to the tight end, if the tight end is running an over route, and push to it. So yeah, there are definitely, I mean, Pete Carroll's cover, like they call it Pete Carroll's spot dropping. I mean, to me, I characterize his cover 3 by having match answers to just about everything. Push calls, opening up calls, wall calls. They have all their fast 3s, slow 3 rules. Any zone match coverage is still going to have spot drops in it. If it didn't, it would cease to be zone. It would then be man. So any zone match coverage, there's going to be some combination of guys carrying players and some guys spot dropping with eyes on the quarterback. That's what makes zone match a zone match. You have some guys in zone and some guys matching with particular rules before they perform their match. So, yeah. But that is Pete Carroll's soft sky.
Well, and just the last part of Chris's question is, was it pioneered by Pete Carroll? Well, likely it's probably a Monte Kiffin solution, and I'm kicking myself because I know that there's something in one of those playbooks that it's not called soft sky, but it's like a similar type of deal. Like ultimately, every team who's running cover 3 needs to have a solution to the threat of 4 verts, because they know that's how offenses are going to beat it. I mean, sometimes teams will just run pure spot drop, but even then, they're kind of relying on their pass rush being the solution, or something they're doing. They're probably having or the disguise.
Like the Todd Bowles will spot drop versus 2x2, but he has his corners true midpoint, like almost play a 60-40. So if both the 1 and the 2 are vertical, the corner is almost bailing and literally splitting the horizontal distance between the 2 defenders really aggressively.
Yeah, it's more like the outside throws where the room is, isn't it?
Yeah. Now there's still that window, over the curl underneath the corner, but it's there. Like not Tom Brady. Right. Someone hit it in the playoffs a bunch of times.
And then interestingly, Chris, I haven't been able to look at I've only watched 2006 USC, like all 22, but it wasn't called soft sky then, I don't think.
They still use seam alert though, right?
Well, I think on the play sheets that I've seen, they called it match right or match left, which if you're thinking in a college world, if the ball's on this hash, are we going to ask the boundary guy to match, or would we ask the nickel to match? So I think they just did left and right, and they designated it pre-snap. And I think possibly they played like more of like a match side and then more of like a zone side in their cover of 3. So like, and we're kind of seeing that with Seattle. If you look at whenever the Seattle this year and a few, like last year of Ken Norton maybe, whenever they face empty, so the backside will play like man. It will play out basically like man to empty. But they're running cover 3 over on this side.
Mm-hmm.
And they'll still match the seam.
Right.
So really, search on Twitter for like very specific key terms like hang buzz, like I said.
It's all in there.
Soft sky. We've covered this quite a lot. And also that sort of pattern recognition we spoke about, like watch how, I mean, Seattle doesn't always do it now, but like if you look at, I'm pretty sure I broke this down. Yeah, because in the Detroit game, they had a problem with how they were matching the seams. Like it looked as though Diggs wasn't cheating as like 60-40 as he should have been to his seam at times. And then it also looked like, well, Julian Love just got ISO balled. But I broke it down on Twitter how in the meetings in the lead up to that game, because the team official account posted a photo from Rod Maher where the safeties are looking over a play, and it's just a still of the play. But I went back like a sad man that I am and looked at it, and it was the Jets playing cover 3 in a very similar way to how Seattle does it with the soft sky versus the Lions. So the safeties, because the Lions were such a big team for clearly Seattle was planning to run a lot of kind of cover 3 and have to match the seams. The safeties were trying to get ready for that, and ultimately they kind of failed in their execution. But again, that's something that I've tweeted about. Honestly, like me and Griff learned so much about this, partly through just searching searching Twitter, very specific key terms, along with the internet as well, and that really does come up. And then the final thing on Seam Alert is, sorry, what?
I was just saying in clinics too.
Right.
Like a lot of it's out there.
Right. So the final thing on Seam Alert is if the will or whatever, if this guy is out here and the strong safety is coming into a hook, it would still be the down safety who matches this seam. So back how Seattle used to do it when they were...
So then it becomes buzz, right?
Yeah. So it's buzz rotation, but still Seam Alert with the safety
carrying it from the hook with inside leverage.
So Seattle's rule was the free safety handles the first seam to his side, and the strong safety handles the second seam, and everyone else plays like zone. Obviously, being aware that the flat is a fast 3 is an issue, and there's other pre-snap indicators, but 2x2 is one of them.
Right. All right. There you have it. Soft sky.
So that's soft sky.
No seams, no post as praxis.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, no seams, no posts. Like, offenses are trying to run against cover 3. They're trying to run seams, and Seattle's one real rule was do not give up the seam. So
yeah,
because that's how teams will try and beat cover 3, especially with how they played it with the corners mugged up on the outside, like playing real aggressive, just like robbing dudes. Oh, right.
All right. What was this podcast going to be about?
I don't know. Maybe we should make a note of the timestamp for Ty so he can edit this. Cool. Right, so Griff, the Seahawks are 3-1. It's the bye week finishing up. How do you feel about how they got on so far? Has your expectations from the start of the season, where didn't you predict they'd win 11 games? Or was it 12?
I think I said 12. 12-5.
Yes. Are you feeling more positive about that, more negative, or about the same?
I think they're on target. To me, this team has some like major like flailing going on with some like pretty huge weaknesses, and they have an absolutely decimated offensive line, and they're 3-1. And their advanced metrics in the aggregate are pretty darn good. Their plus minus is good. Their net DVOA is good. Like, they're a good team with some major problems and problems that they can improve on. But the fact that they have major problems and are still so good only speaks to their underlying like potential. I think ultimately that once this team is fully formed in the way like, okay, this is who they're going to be, generally more or less week in, week out. Once we arrive on that point with, that type of team could still drop a game, right? But once they're there and we all kind of agree this is as good as they are going to be, like that, however good that is going to be like very good. I think they're going to be, I think they can be tied for next best in the NFC after San Francisco. basically, I think they can be up there with the Eagles and the Cowboys, especially the Cowboys, because they have some issues. But I think they also have a lot of potential that they need to kind of harness. But I just think they're really talented. The Seahawks are like they're a strong team, strong coaching staff, strong roster, strong process. They're only performing poorly in the areas that make sense to perform poorly in, given injuries, and they're outperforming in other areas. So yeah, I just generally feel really positive about it. How about you?
Yeah, there's certainly some. Like, I think when we were heading into this year, before we'd seen the preseason, like our reservation was like the biggest reservation with the team was their interior defensive line just doesn't look like they can get it done.
Right.
What we saw from Jaron Reed's film last year, what we saw just from the lack of additions there and just the lightness. Then obviously we see the scheme and the way they're kind of working that, and then the results from the preseason. You can't put too much stock in that, but it seemed real, and so it's proved. Like the fact that that was our major concern for the defense, and depth is still questionable there, and you're kind of crossing your fingers that Jaron Reed's able to keep this up for a whole season. But like, right. I mean, that's so big. I think I said they'd win 11, but yeah, it's going to be interesting. Now their schedule in terms of who they've played, the Rams game is annoying. It's kind of nice to me that they've dropped a game because it means the hype's not on overdrive. They're still, I think, slept on by some people. I don't think people realize how good they are, and obviously their real stark weaknesses. Like we'll talk about the statistics of like the pass defense, and also the offense being capped in the way it has been by injuries, and also just you're kind of working out who they are. They've still got a lot of room to grow, and they've still got a lot of room to improve, and yet they're still 3-1, which is pretty impressive. But in terms of their schedule, they've beat a really good Lions team, which is a huge win. Now the Panthers are not a good team, and the Giants were awful, like abysmal, like shockingly. Watching the film back, shockingly bad. Or the defense they played okay. So this schedule is tough. Like looking who Seattle has to play and like the teams who they have to beat and the teams who all have something to play for, like Bengals, Cardinals, obviously a bit more frisky than people expected, but then Browns, Ravens, Commanders, Rams, those are all just nasty kind of teams. There's not much respite, but I don't think they'd have it any other way. And there isn't any like total absolute outmatched team on the schedule. And I know it's the NFL, so things are always tight, but there's no one who I think Seattle should be over like a 3-point underdog to, other than potentially when they host the 49ers, who they look crazy, but things can happen, things can change very fast in the NFL.
Right.
And that's a long way away. So they could really string this together. This Bengals game coming up, I think, is huge for them because the Bengals, in a lot of ways, are going to test what Seattle's been good at and what Seattle's been bad at, like their offense, pass coverage wise.
Right.
It's going to be a real test to see if Seattle can improve and how good their healthy DB room is. And then their gun run game is a bit of a different wrinkle for Seattle. Like, can the run game sustain, especially if Seattle's trying to focus more assets towards pass coverage? And then defensively, I mean, I don't really know, but they've got some interesting pieces. There's a lot of disguise. We'll preview that tomorrow. But
Indeed.
Griff, before we look at the offense in a bit more detail, is there anything which has stood out to you as a surprise? Because it sounds like it's gone as expected to you. Other than the injuries, which you can't really.
Yeah. I'm still surprised by the individual. I mean, I thought Jaron Reed, if in a scheme that it gives the players a fighting chance, I thought being back in Seattle under the tutelage of Clint Hurt, who he's familiar with and everything, I thought he could be serviceable. In Green Bay last year, if you isolated even the context where Green Bay seemed sound on paper, he still wasn't serviceable. He was even below that. But in hindsight, it really didn't seem like he was even trying. And he was played for like 800 snaps, so he was probably gassed on top of it.
Yeah,
But
and you know, he made comments to that. Well, John Schneider made comments via Jaron Reed to that effect that he just bad things happened.
Wasn't happy there, right? So I am surprised that he is playing as well as he is. It's kickstarted by the scheme change. I'm surprised Mario Edwards is playing as well as he is. I'm surprised that they recommitted to being an even space team, but it's just so startling how changing the techniques on the interior by basically one gapping instead of two gapping and involving the nickel instead of the weak safety when they're in too high has made all the difference. Like, I'm shocked. Now, the one thing we do need to talk about, this is another thing I'm surprised by, is they're not really a too high team anymore. Like, they've cut their too high usage in half. They're like, is that right, Matty? Like, their numbers are, if last year and the year before they were 50-50 in terms of too high to one high, which is around top 5 in the league in terms of too high usage on early downs. Now they're 75-25 cover 3 to too high combo coverages, which also makes it easier to fit the run because the box is preloaded.
Yeah, I think we should talk about that in more detail on defense, but it's definitely a thing
right.
to overview. Yeah.
So I mean, really, I'm surprised by a lot of it. I'm semi-surprised that their pass coverage in certain areas has regressed. I'm not surprised that maybe their coverage in isolation has regressed because there's just been a lot of corner upheaval, corner injury. I think it's only a matter of time for them to get healthy and string together weeks, so that becomes a strength, because it's been a strength like 2.5 seasons, 3 seasons really running, is their corner coverage, at least win in cover 3 on perimeter stuff. I guess really, now that I think about it, I'm surprised by quite a bit. I'm not surprised that the results are trending positively, because I always have faith for them to figure that out. Maybe how they got there is a little surprising to me, though.
Yeah, I completely agree with the Reed thing. I mean, never again will I underestimate the impact of, you know, motivation, and we just don't know everything that's going on. Like, that is something. Long after the season, I'll return to him as an example of what can happen. And on that point as well, it's cool seeing how someone like Mario Edwards has taken to the way they're playing at the interior, because he hadn't played there in so long, and he's shown some real flashes, albeit in a smaller sample size. Now, I mean, on top of what you've said, which I'm kind of aligned with, the offensive surprises for me have been they've been able to, despite the offensive line injuries, stay effective. And I think, yeah, that's testament to Andy Dickerson and Jake Curhan coming in and Stone Forsyth coming in and not completely embarrassing themselves. But also it's testament to Geno Smith's ability to work with what he has. He has really made them look good. And there's been times where lesser quarterbacks or lesser pocket presence quarterbacks would have had real problems and offense would have been derailed. And sure, you know, the offense has had its stallings, but it's been good enough. And I think Geno's kind of got what he's been able to get out of this most of the time. So that's really, really cool. Now, the other thing that I would like to talk about, which is a surprise, is them getting so much out of their tight end group. I really am amazed that meat on the bone wise, there's been more for them to access than what we saw last year. Like, Waldron's gone, well, that was cool how we did the pistol full house thing, and we did the kind of diamond look and all of that good stuff.
Yeah. He's basically,
let's do more. Let's go
right.
You got words like sidecar coming out, and you're using that on the podcast a few times. I'm like, oh, that's a great name for it. And it's a sidecar look, and I know other people have used that too. And it's just amazing how they've been able to keep and sustain it. And maybe they've pushed it to the limit. We don't know, but I'm surprised how the offense, it seems, they're doing a bit of everything. It's kind of nuts, and yet
Yeah.
it hasn't really found its final form, and that's very
No.
exciting to me
Right.
because I went in thinking 11 personnel, JSN, mismatches, run the ball, and obviously with the pass pro getting hurt, but also the tight ends being so effective, especially multiple ones on the field at each time, they've taken a completely different shape, and yet they've still managed to be good. So that's
Yeah. I
surprising.
mean, the principle is keep doing it till they stop it. And Waldron's realizing that base personnel defense cannot handle play action right now. Like it can't. If they want to, they're going to have to start playing too high to give their defense better leverage on those crossing routes that end up hitting them on the boot and stuff. And then if they do that, then that's going to open up the run game a little bit, and they might be able to get sizable gains. But and then also they have the ability to, which they haven't done a whole lot of yet, I don't think, because they don't have the protection for it. But one of their big strengths last year was shifting into empty out of 12 personnel, and then Gino just picking apart zone, just dicing them. That was one of their main ways they access the middle of the field too. That's part why we're not seeing a lot of middle of the field access right now, is because they don't have the 5-man protection to go into empty, and be able to do that. But like, it's just, there's even more coming down the pipe that they haven't been able to do because of their injuries at offensive line. So it's really useful for them. I still think 11 is coming. It will come. Obviously, like the Jackson move was in part one because 3 is more than 2. They like Jackson a lot, right? But then also they know that the tight end group they have, they cannot continue to roster them long term. They're going to have to do something with Will Disley's contract. Noah Fant's an unrestricted free agent, so they're probably going to have. I mean, there's going to be attrition at tight end after this year. There just is. So in that case, that's where, well, you've got Jackson waiting in the wings right there. So they'll probably shift toward being an 11 personnel team. I don't think it's that Waldron has a particular affinity for 12 personnel. It's just, this is where I have some unreal depth. I have a lot of versatility out of this, and like, why not use it? So
Yeah. So if we dive into, we're talking offense anyway, but if we sort of dive into some statistics, and we can't keep saying the injuries, there's other reasons for this too, but the injuries are a big explanation, as you saw when we looked at the tape from that Giants third down stalling. But third down in general for Seattle's offense has been super, super disappointing. They're at 28.89%, which is the second worst total in the league. The Jets, by context, who are the worst team, are 26.23%. Seattle is aiming for that number to be over 50%. There's only 2 teams in the league who are there right now, and they're the best offenses in the league, Kansas City and Philadelphia. So, but, that number's not even close to the middle. Like, it's just bad. So, I mean, the middle team in the league is Indianapolis at 39.13%, just so you get an idea. So, Griff, other than the offensive tackle stuff, why, I mean, there's a lot of issues which go into third downs, right? Like, sometimes they're too long, sometimes there's penalties, sometimes they call a bad play, sometimes players just don't execute. Gino kind of likes to put it down to inconsistency or needing to be more consistent and execute better, which that bloody helps, doesn't it? But what else is, I mean, can we say more than that?
I mean, injuries and penalties are huge obstructions, right? Like, you got to pick a struggle. Like, it can't be both all the time. And then some of it's also Gino has turned down some reads that he could have fired on, and that, like, he's part of the equation too. And then when he's been good, others haven't, right? So it's a little bit of all of the above. You wonder, how much is the protection, especially on the interior, like, affecting him, like his process, his internal clock, because he handles exterior pressure really well. Like, he's made Stone and Jake's job really easy. They've made their names not be called. He's made their names not be called when maybe they could have been if they're giving up a pressure. He's stepping up through it, but when he's got pressure coming down the pipe, he's reading the play out. He's trying to progress, and then he's turning down reads because I don't think he trusts that he can step into the throw the way that he wants to, and he ends up turning down looks.
And I don't from like on that point from our perspective in our sitting in our computers, being big nerds. You'd have to agree with his decision not to do that. Like it looked like his arm would get taken off, or the ball would get
right.
tipped, or a fumble would happen. Like it's not being overcautious. I suggest.
Right, and like you can nitpick because sometimes the pressure doesn't end up coming. It looks like it could, then it doesn't. But he's tucked the ball, or he's moved on to another read, or he's trying to create. But you don't always know because 8 times out of 10, it might, the guy might be in his lap and the ball might die on him because he's not being able to access all of his throw strength. Because he is a mechanical thrower. Like has lots of arm talent when his body's all working on a string, but it saps his power, like is zapped if he doesn't have a platform to throw on. So it's
And a good example of that, Griff, when he's trying to drive the out route to Jackson Smith and Jigba on the third down versus the Panthers, and the ball is just slow getting there because it's all upper body. He doesn't feel comfortable enough with Stone Forsyth getting rushed off his left side, I think it was, stepping fully into that. So it's all just upper body torque, and the ball just is late getting there. And the defender made a really good drive on the ball, but if Gino's able to step into that, that pass gets completed.
Right. Agree. There was one instance that we looked at it last week where he was progressing to Jackson on a kind of a deep over route, and he had him if he put it right on the numbers, but protection didn't even let him begin his throwing motion. So it's been a little bit of everything. I do think is that on Waldron. I think Waldron needs to introduce kind of more like deep drop concepts, but the route concepts are a little more shallow, or so like gun 3 concepts, so 5-step drop concepts, but have more wraps over the middle, a little more stick dig, little more hitch dig, because there's space for it. But with those route stems, he elects to have the guy that would run the high route run more of a seam or a deep bender as opposed to like more of a square dig. Or
like that.
Like
the Panther stuff we looked at. We were like, why isn't that wrapping?
So I was watching the for my own purposes, I was watching the Falcons, and Desmond Ridder had a breakout game. But and this isn't about Desmond Ridder, although he did play really well at everything.
Okay, stop.
But I was watching Arthur Smith's drop back game. I'm like, there's a very similar structure because obviously they have commonalities in their coaching tree between Waldron and Smith. But he just breaks everything off more shallow, and they hit the hole so much quicker. And Ritter's the type of quarterback that he'll just bang out his reads and get the ball out, snap after snap after snap. At least when he's functioning like how he's supposed to. It's like Gino will do that. Give him those plays, and there's not a threat of turnover or well-timed delivery of the ball, like, with good scheme and good receivers. It's not interceptable over the middle. Like a lot of the some of it might be tight, but a lot of it isn't. So I just don't understand. Like they're tight ends, Jackson, like even Tyler. Like I just don't know why we're not seeing a lot of it, because they run a lot of very similar concepts. It's just the route details are different, basically. So I do feel like Waldron could help them, and that could get Gino in rhythm. That could get the protection in rhythm. Like it's like a wheel, right? Like it's circular. You have to just pick a spot somewhere on the wheel and fix one of them, and then hopefully there'll be like a positive cascading effect. But I don't know. I am curious to see if in this game against the Bengals, if Waldron, especially after an extra bye week, a study probably, if he introduces different drop back concepts on third down. And another reason why third downs probably aren't working as well is if you isolate what isn't working quite as well in early downs, although he's still doing decently, is it's the pure drop back efficiency. His success rate is like middle of the pack, early down dropbacks. Last year, he was like top 5. The reason why early down total drop back attempts is so good is because play action is carrying the sample. Geno Smith's success rate on play action right now is like 80%. That is like extraordinarily high. That number will probably fall, but he'll still remain in the top 5 all season long, I reckon. We want the pure dropbacks, the non-play actions, to rise with it. And it should get there because historically that's what Geno's best at. They just don't have the strength around him. to get him there. But again, that's another reason why everything projects really well, because if they can have an elite play action offense with as much injury as they have, and they're not even involving Jackson Smith and Jigba yet, imagine how good they'll be once they get healthy, and how good the rest of the entire offense will be, really. So, and they have a run game too. So they just have a lot going for them. But yeah, as Lee says in the chat, probably starts with getting healthy at offensive line. That's the starting point.
And I think, you're sort of talking about how this might be regression in other areas. The kind of hope is that the third downs can't stay this bad. Like, from what we've seen, there's just no way. And like, talking of another point which may regress a bit while third downs improve, hopefully it doesn't, but it's kind of an area they're doing really well at. First and second down pure dropback EPA per rbsdm.com, they're fourth best in the league, and their dropback success rate, they are third best in the league on first and second downs. So early downs, they're doing well. And what also stands out about early downs, well, generally speaking, we are generalizing slightly here, but defenses don't know whether it's run or pass as much. The meaning that the tackles, the inexperienced protection, they aren't in as bad a spot. They aren't in as tough a spot. Right. And I just think it's, there's a lot of stuff going on, but the injuries are the big thing.
So the gun run game, the fact that they have a gun run game this year, which they ended last year with, and we connected that to like a variety of factors, again, injury and just needing to like get coherence and stuff. But the gun run game is the biggest divergence from last year. They're gun running way more this year, like way more. Their aggregate pass rate is still really high. It's still like 58%, which is like top five-ish, depending on how you control for game state. And I expect that number to get even a little bit higher again once they get healthy. But the fact that they're gun running is a huge divergence from last year, because last year they were saying we don't need gun runs in our gun sample because we can call a pass game that has enough breadth and diversity that it can be self-balancing, meaning if they sit on the second level, we can hit the first and third level. If they sit shallow, we can hit the second and third. If they sit deep, we can hit the first and second, et cetera, right? Because you have a quarterback that stylistically, in process anyway, has the intention of using the whole field and going through as the complete progressions, and therefore you can call different types of concepts. This year they're introducing a gun run game. One, I just think because why would you go away from it? Even Sean McVay, who is notorious for having 90% gun pass rates, or 90% pass rates winning gun, has introducing gun runs now. Now he's down to like 75% because he wants to play action in shotgun. He doesn't like being two-dimensional. Arthur Smith had 90% pass rates to Ryan Tannehill. He's at like 60, 70% right now. He wants to be able to run play action in any formation. So I think that's Pete and Waldron just being like, one, gun running can be efficient. It can be more efficient than under center anyway. And then why would you not be able to play action out of it? That's what, I mean, that's pistol of, confuses the numbers a little bit because that's counted as shotgun. But I mean, Geno, you want to be able to get Geno on the run too whenever you can, because he is so good out on space, creating and in structure. So like, get him out. You can't get him out in space out of gun. It's easier to do it anyway if you can mesh with the running back, if you can get play action. So we're seeing just a lot more tendency diversity in an offense that already had a lot of tendency and conceptual diversity, or at least the concepts you run in different formations. Formational diversity is what I mean. We're seeing even more of it this year. It's keeping offenses on their heels, really. So, yeah, I'm excited to see how that changes over the course of the season.
Yeah, and that seems like a theme to this offense right now, and they really sort of staying ahead of the counterpunch almost, or they have the counterpunch where they're hiding their true intentions. We don't really know. They're almost staying off schedule intentionally. And I think as the season progresses, they'll become a bit more deliberate. Well, not saying they're not deliberate, but almost less clever They haven't really been quite as blunt as they could have been with it, and maybe will be with it down the line.
Yeah. One thing we haven't seen is they haven't really hit a go ball yet or a fade
No,
ball.
and to that point, Griff, Gino ranks just 27th in average throw depth. 6.7 yards is his average throw depth now.
Mm-hmm.
And I know, Lockett has barely been targeted downfield. Metcalf is more of a vertical route guy, but yeah, we
He's
haven't really
winning in
seen the
other
go
ways.
ball.
So
Jackson Smith and Jigba, to get him touches, we've seen him get downfield routes, but to get him the touches, they're throwing him like just bubbles and
right.
sort of jet dump offs and that sort of stuff.
So again, it speaks to the general positivity or an optimistic viewpoint that they're not doing it all like what was their silver bullet last year, which was the deep ball, and they're still as efficient as they are right now. To end last year, they weren't able to adjust enough through their injuries and stuff to adapt as necessary. This year, they're showing that they pretty much have similar surrounding variables, and Gino and Waldron and everyone really has shown that they've been able to adapt and fight through it. And they, like you said, like the fourth most efficient early down pass offense in the entire league with this situation, and you're not going deep. Like if you told me they'll be the fourth most efficient passing offense on downs 1 and 2, and they will not connect on any explosives, basically, what would you say? I'd be surprised. But secondly, I would say, well, if they're not connecting on explosives, that's concerning. But is that something that any offense that features Tyler Lockett, Geno Smith, and DK Metcalf, is that going to sustain? Probably not. The fact that they're still finding a way to be efficient is really encouraging. So, I mean, explosives in my mind are going to come. They have to. And they're still like this speaks to their floor, right?
Absolutely, yeah. Their floor hasn't really been as what you'd think of an offensive floor, right? Like they've been pretty damn okay considering. They have 7 completions of 16 air yards or greater, which is 28th in the league. The most is Kirk Cousins with 19, then Brock Purdy with 18. So again, that's what Seattle considers an explosive passing play, 16 yards or greater, although this is air yards, so just making the shots be apparent. And I think as well of like missed opportunities, like that play where you watch it live and you're like, oh, Tyler Lockett made a good pass breakup to prevent a pick against the Panthers. Then you go and watch the tape and you're like, damn, Tyler could have caught that. And that was a really good shot play because they're kind of getting the quarter safety to take the cheese. They're dressing up like it's smash. Lockett's actually running the corner post like over route. Gino's pinging it behind the quarter safety. And Lockett is scared because the quarter safety actually gets off Metcalf's bait route and bails deep. But Lockett, the way he tracked the ball and the way Gino threw it, could have caught it, but he ended up kind of not believing that it was there. That's a shot which should have been completed and just wasn't for kind of a freaky reason, off-play action. But that, along with kind of Gino having time to read out drop back, just think of those plays we looked at where he turns down the post route on like a 989 to try and throw DK's go route. Well, 1, DK needs to start winning on the go route, but 2, if Gino had a bit more faith in the protection or just Gino was afforded more time in the pocket in general, then he can read off that to the over route with comfort and throw the over route, and that's definitely 16 yards or more, the way that was getting open deep behind the kind of second level or beneath safety. So I just think if this doesn't improve, something terrible has happened because the signs are there that it will. Yeah. Run game efficiency, Griff. That's an exciting topic.
Yeah, they're running the ball well this year. I think.
Well, are they? Because Kenneth Walker coming into the season, the whole narrative, and it wasn't even a narrative. Like the statistics, they pointed towards him being an incredibly inefficient running back, home run seeker, and that was a massive reason, at least from the outside, for their selection of Zach Charbonnet, who obviously, coming out of college, was a very efficient back in college and more of a kind of in-between the tackles thumper to Walker's, I'm going to juke and eke out the opportunity to hit a home run or get tackled for minimal gain or even loss. So has Walker improved in this area, Griff, in your eyes, or?
Yeah, he definitely seems more, well, one, he's taking the yards that he sees, but then he's also more patient in letting the blocking develop a little bit and then hitting it. So he's kind of creating yards in that sense. He was kind of lacking in both areas last year. Like he's reading the play out right, and then just decides not to hit that. Like he's seeing what he's supposed to see, and you can tell that he knows that that's what's there. He's like, no, but I don't want to only take 2 yards here. And then he tries to create, and sometimes it works, but when it doesn't, it's -2 yards. So there's a 4-yard swing, right? This year he's taking those yards when he should take them, but then also he's again allowing the blocking to develop a little bit more, kind of feeling it, like predicting where the movement's going to be. Like not over, what's the word? Like pacing it out, right?
Overdoing it.
Yeah, and so he's getting those yards. So his success rate has skyrocketed. I'm pretty sure he's like 7th in shotgun EPA per rush. His success rate, I think, is middle of the pack, which last year it was, what was it, like bottom 3 of guys with X amount of targets. So
yeah, so his EPA per attempt, Griff, and all of the data we've used, unless I've specified it, is courtesy of Sports Info Solutions. He's 0.06 EPA per attempt, which is 8th in the league. Really impressive. And I mean, Devon A-Chain has 0.51, which is ludicrous. But he doesn't have as many carries. But then DeAndre Swift is the next best. Again, Jalen Hurts kind of run game. He's 0.16. And then I guess Tyjae Spears, 0.14, but he doesn't have many carries. There's no one really comparable to Breece Hall, I guess, is a good comp, and he's 0.11. So that's very impressive from Walker to go from what we saw to this, you know.
Right. He's he got better from year 1 to year 2, straight up. You know, it's probably as simple as that.
And even on the plays where it looks like he's overdoing it now, we you know, like we did when we went over the Panther stuff, it turns out he probably wasn't. You know, you watch it back and you're like, okay, actually that makes a bit more sense. Like that's not just seeking out. And I think the Charbonnet pick, he's done some really cool hits and made some defenders make certain decisions, get knocked on their ass. But also, I think that has sort of forced Walker to, and we'll never know, but it must do. It must force you to be a bit more sensible and actually, okay, I would like that goal line carry for the touchdown, please. And I would like the opportunity to convert on this 3rd and short. There, I think there's genuine pushing of his position, which is exciting.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to talk about? I think we've done a very comprehensive offensive recap. The defense, Griff.
To the defense. What about the defense?
Well, how sustainable is Seattle's run defense? Because it's remarkable. Like, the fact that they were so damn bad last year, like, just abysmally bad.
I mean, Jaron Reed was bad last year for Green Bay. He's awesome now. Mario Edwards wasn't even an interior player last year, let alone a high snap player. He's like 2 years removed from being an interior player, 3 years removed from playing significant snaps inside. And he's awesome, apparently. Draymond Jones against the run is okay. He's fine. He actually had a good game in all phases, I think, against the Giants. The edges are like every one of them. Even Taylor is doing some okay stuff. But like Mafe, Uchenna Nwosu, Logan Hall are all just cracking skulls out there. The linebackers, they get to play vertical. It's a lot of it's one high. It's not one high. They still get to play vertical. They just get to see their gap, play their gap. It's really simple for them. And this shows, like, it highlights their explosive ability, and it makes their keys easier, and it shows how quickly they can key when the keys are simple. Like, they're just flying. Both Bobby and Brooks. Brooks is making a lot of plays outside the tackle box as well. The nickel, whoever the nickel is, whoever has to get involved, I mean, they're really sticking their neck out there. but they also really helps the math work. We're seeing a lot of line movement too. So it's really impressive. They're really not a 3-4 team anymore, which they were barely a 3-4 team last year. When they were a 3-4 team last year, they were pretty good.
Let's not get bogged down into
But
the old
this
dialogue.
year
Let's
though, like
enjoy.
they're not. They're a 4-down nickel team, even if it's 2 down but 2 edge. It's a 4-man spaced nickel front now. And when they are in 3-4 personnel, the spacing of the front is just that of a reduced over under, the classic stuff they used to do with Red Bryant, Brandon Mebane, McDaniel, or Bennett, whoever you want.
Cam.
It's really just the old stuff. They're just taking the Leo, and instead of his hand in the dirt, he's standing up. But the alignments are all the same. The assignments are all the same, really.
Well,
and for run defense.
The Leo's playing slightly wider and slanting in rather than playing head up on a tight end. Sometimes.
True, but I mean, they would do a lot of things with the Leo, right? Like occasionally we'd see him in a 9 or in a 6. We're not seeing a lot of this 6 where he's head up at the tight end now. But
yeah, I think that's my point. That's how it's sort of adapted to the current personnel.
Yeah.
That's not Michael Bennett playing in that spot.
Because instead of playing a 6, they'll we are seeing some 6 against certain looks, but like they're spiking him now.
Yeah.
Right. So it's achieving a similar post snap effect. But the point is, like, the structure is the same. It's no longer odd space.
Absolutely.
Although we saw, that said, we actually did see a little bit of Penny against the Giants, but that was more of like
9 snaps of Nickel Bear.
Yeah, more of a Daniel Jones thing. Probably.
Yeah, and that's like they did in the past. They'd sprinkle that in mainly as a different way of presenting pressure, but also for that mobile quarterback of, okay, they're in light personnel, but they're running kind of option football. We're just going to stick 2 edges here and cover up the guards.
Yeah, so
and if you want to pull, now we're going to cause you problems, and we're going to move and mess with your protection. Right. It's just like how they did it way back. But yeah, numbers-wise, 2.8 yards per attempt per SIS on designed runs only, excluding quarterback runs, which is best in the league. Next best is the Lions at 2.9 yards per attempt. Let's find something a bit more advanced. EPA per attempt, they are 5th best, minus 0.18. The best in the league is the Browns at minus 0.31. Interesting to see how that changes throughout the season. Positive play percentage, 32.6%. 5th best. Falcons are the best in the league, 29.5%. So they're doing super, super well. And as Griff said, they're moving, they're slanting. The fact that we only saw Nickel Bear emerge last week for the first time, I think they have enough answers to sustain this to a degree. You can't sustain something to a degree. They're not going to end suddenly and be like 15th. They're definitely a top 10, 5. I'll stick by it.
Top 5, yeah.
I said top 5.
You did.
And all of this was stuff, I said at the start of the season, they're going to be a top 5 run defense. That's my bold prediction. That's because you saw it in the preseason. You saw third string dudes, and I did a video on it. You saw third string dudes playing with that clear understanding of when they needed to spike, when they needed to play a bit more heavy, what their gap was when motion happened, how they were going to play an RPO, what was their responsibility on a given play. You saw everyone buying in, all up and down the roster, guys who weren't even playing the NFL in a regular season game. And so it just translates, and that was fairly simple in the preseason, and they've added a bit more in, and there's a few more wrinkles and stuff. But ultimately, this also is an example, Griff, of when you can stop the run like this, your defense doesn't have to be as bad as it was last year, even though on third down defense, Griff, they've been abysmal in terms of the raw numbers.
Yeah, and that even includes rushing yardage too on third downs. Their third down run defense is not good either, but that is primarily because they're not schematically situated for it. Which again should hammer some things home, that you can have good run defenders, and if you don't schematically situate yourself for the run, you'll get run on, which this current defense right now is experiencing. So imagine if they schemed the run on 1st and 10 like they do on 3rd and 6, you're going to get ran on, which that's what happened last year. You do it with the same group this year, the same thing would happen. They just don't do that on 1st and 10, but they do it on 3rd and 6. So I think they actually kind of need to account for the run more on 3rd downs. Again,
and that's more like, it's not really a middle field open, middle field closed deal. It's more like, even if they're playing like one high, where in theory they'd have numbers in the box, they're coming out with 6 DBs, and they're not playing in the box. They're playing super wide in a dime.
they're like the B gap defender is like aligned outside the tackle almost, for example.
And that kind of brings me to the other point of, as I just say, Seattle's 52.38% opponent 3rd down conversion percentage, which is second worst in the league to Chicago, who are 57.35%. Best in the league is Cleveland at 22.64%. Damn, that's impressive. So Seattle has massive ways to go there. Now, what was I saying? 3rd down, dime. Oh, yeah. You mentioned at the top of the show as one of your biggest surprises how Seattle is running, a bit more one high than we thought than 2 high. Now, that's on all 3 downs. Like, I need to go over my charting and everything and really work it out. But I think they feel really positive about their ability to just man up and play cover 1, or even play more cover 3, because of their DB talent.
Right.
And also how they want to get after opposing passers on pressure schemes and whatnot. And I've actually been surprised, especially like that Rams game, but in most of the games, how much middle field close they played when they were expecting pass, right? Now, game plan to game plan, week by week, what they want to disguise, what personnel they're facing. I'm sure they'll change it up a bit more, and as the scheme evolves throughout the season. But
right,
I think they feel really, really positive about their DB talent to play a bit more one high from an aggressive perspective.
Right. Well, it ties everything together because, last year they were a very good cover 3 team in coverage, like almost the best. If you just do rush 4 cover 3, they were the best cover 3 defense. So in their mind, they're thinking, okay, well, we're good at cover 3, let's do more of it, and then that has a double effect in allowing you to have a better chance against the run. Although they are defending the run well still in 2 high, just not as well as they are in 1 high.
But like
being 1 high.
genuinely good, like less than 3.5 yards per carry in 2 high.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's
really good.
It's still extremely good. Yeah. But I do think part of the reason why was, let's load the box more and give ourselves a better shot. So I think that was part of the intention behind it. Now, when they are playing cover 3, speaking to what you said, Matty, about how they changed that up throughout the year, they are playing cover 3. They're rotating weak almost exclusively.
Mm-hmm.
It's really easy.
What Fangio would call cover 9.
Yeah. So the weak safety is going to the weak hook or the weak flat, primarily the weak flat. What that tells us is that it's a lot easier to weave in and out of 2 high and 1 high by moving the weak safety, basically rotating weak with him, because the weak safety, he can go and play the weak quarter, or he can come out of that look and then go play the weak flat spin down. If they were rotating strong
in a nickel personnel grouping or multiple defense, 5 or 6 DBs, yeah. Right.
If they were rotating strong a lot like they did with Cam, it would be a lot harder to then have that the skill set, the strong safety to then spin deep and then be aligned to the passing strength, because there's more range being placed on him. So there's still a pretense of we're kind of a 2 high base team, or at least there's a pretense of we're establishing that we are still liable to play 2 deep, whether it be quarters, cover 2, cover 6, cover 8, by rotating weak. So it's just their structure accommodates being able to weave in and out of 2 high as much as they want and go into 1 high as much as they want. So that might change over the course of the season. They might say, we're really good at stuffing the run. We can dial it back a little bit. We can cool our jets. We can go play half quarter again, out of our nickel even spaced front. But yeah, I do think it's like they're thinking, we've got Tariq Woolen and Devin Witherspoon. We're going to be good in coverage eventually. We just need to get there, and they are trending that way. They're again early down performance abysmal against the Rams, below average against the Lions, good against the Panthers on early downs. Yeah, Andy Dalton threw for like 300 yards or whatever, but he was not very efficient on early downs. It was their third down calls. And then they dominated the Giants, as you should do well against the Giants. But to thoroughly and utterly dominate them better than any of the other 4 teams that the Giants have played is still a good thing. So they've gotten better every week on early downs. So I do think the improvement is real.
Agreed. And the Dalton game is really misleading to me. Like, obviously they weren't trying to give up that many yards, but the way they're playing now,
time, yeah.
Pete is fine. Well, not fine, but he won't be that concerned. Just if you think back to some of the games that even like the Legion of Boom had, where some backup guy in like garbage time starts just chucking it around the yard, and they're just smacking the check down and rushing the passer. Like, you can't win a game when Andy Dalton is passing that often.
Yeah,
like
true.
They went away from the run, and it killed them. And they couldn't run the ball either, which killed them. Like, that was never going to be a winning formula for the Panthers, and so it proved. And that's kind of the defense that Seattle's playing now. But I do think, I haven't seen any evidence that the third down issues are related to schematically them trying to stop the run. I mean, we've just spoke about how sometimes they're in looks where they're too open for the third down tendency change on like a 3rd and 4 run play because they're playing the pass. I think it's just them. One, could be in a case of we emphasized, just like last offseason, Pete Carroll admitted afterwards, reflecting on what had happened, hey, we may have over-focused on pass coverage and not emphasized run stuff enough, and that's why we're in a mess and we didn't coach it right. It could be the case that in the offseason, Seattle over-focused on fixing the run defense in their emphasis, and the pass defense has suffered. Could be. I think it's, maybe a tiny bit of that, but not to that extent. But I think because ultimately DBs, they're not, they're going to be doing pass coverage drills. They're not going to be out there fitting the box in the run. But I think it's more of a case of they have all these new bodies in the secondary. They have Devin Witherspoon, who's been hurt. They have Reek Willen, who got hurt. They have Julian Love, who's an outside free agent. As we've seen with Seattle, and as we have historical precedent for this, they just have to get the chemistry going. And we've had one game of the healthy starting 5 out there. And Adams left very super, super early. Yeah. Which is unfortunate. It's going to take time. And, talking about the injury report, but Adams is off concussion protocol, which is a limited participant in practice. Everyone else is healthy in the secondary. This test for this Bengals game is going to be huge. But not only do those guys have to have a chemistry of playing together and understanding, but the coaches sort of need to get a grip of, okay, well, this call works for us in this instance here. I mean, it's all well and good having a plan and a game plan and, an idea of what you'd like to do, but you sort of have to see it come to fruition. And often Seattle really kind of leans into their scheme and their concepts on defense as the season progresses and they learn more about the types of guys they have. And rather than kind of adding more through a season, okay, there's some extra flavor, maybe a bit of extra disguise, but generally speaking, Pete has stripped stuff back and become more simple as seasons have progressed on defense, right, Griff?
Yeah, that's true. They 3 years running, as we've talked about really a lot, but especially the last episode. 3 years running, they end up becoming really good, and maybe doesn't sustain for the whole season. Or at least they end up becoming good at something. In this case, I'm talking pass defense. So last year, they had 12 games from week 6 all the way to week 18 of having the 12th or the 7th ranked pass defense. So once they get there, they remain there. At least they remain a level of competence. So 2021, week 6 to week 10, they were extremely good, followed by being average in pass defense. And over the whole they're still like mildly above average over the whole sample. What correlates with that is just their corners get healthy, and I think since 2020 they've had firmly above average, I would argue top 10 talent in their back seven, but they don't start the year with continuity. Guys find themselves. I think this year everyone would agree that regardless of what you thought of their talent levels previously, they're going into this year with the most talent in their back seven that they've had in a long time, between the safety depth, the top end talent, the corner situation. I mean, the corner situation should be a top 5 corner situation at some point this season. So, I mean, I just can't fathom, given that they've gotten on track 3 years in a row, they're heading into the 4th year with maybe even more talent than any of those 3 years. They absolutely are going to get their act together. And they're already on there. I mean, right now they're the 14th or 15th ranked overall defense. Like, this isn't atrocious.
Well, and it makes sense, right? Like, say, they're number 1 or number 5 run defense, and then they're 31-ish pass defense. Like, it's very crude but you could up one and have one slightly go. And
right. I mean, like right now their pass defense in the aggregate is 20th.
Right.
And then if you just look at early downs, they are like 4th. So, and I think a lot of the third down stuff is self-inflicted, and just a lot of like the carousel of individual players cycling in and out, getting picked on in one-on-one situations. They're going to find what they do well on third down. They're going to eliminate like the dumb errors, like where guys are like running into each other in cover one against a trips bunch formation, right?
Yeah,
like
they're not handling a pick properly. They're not on the same, not even same page, but like wavelength. They're not.
Right. And what's most exciting about all of this is that they solved their second down problem. So even the last 3 years, like I keep saying, when they get good, if you isolate what they don't do as well, it's their second down performance. They're defending the check down, which kills you on second down, not as much as first down. They're defending the check down now. It's purely because of pass rush. So as the other elements catch up, it will be met by this improved second down defense, which is just pure talent making up the difference, allowing your structure to be easier to execute. And then as the other elements on first down remain good but continue to get better, then third down just becomes average. Just be average on third down. You're going to have a top 5 defense, maybe 7th, maybe 8th. It's going to be extremely good. I really feel like it's inevitable.
How exciting, and kind of hammering home the point here. And yeah, the Giants, it was bad. Like, watching the tape back, I was shocked how bad that offense was for the NFL. Like, it's an NFL attack, and it's that bad. Anyway, to hammer home the point, though, Seattle allowed 4 non-penalty explosive plays, so runs of 12 yards or more, passes of 16 yards or more, but how Pete Carroll categorizes it. And 3 of those 4 plays were basically, Jones improvising scramble, and then a chuck down the field. Kind of stuff that happens, stuff where you kind of tip your hat and go, okay, do that for a whole game and win. And you can't. You turn the ball over. Bad things happen. It's just not sustainable. Then the other one was Matt Breeder's 22-yard catch in the midway through the third quarter on 3rd and 4. And that was a similar man coverage issue versus mesh, where it ended up with basically 4 in the pattern to one side, where Seattle had issues with that kind of deal before. And it's happened twice now. Third time lucky, but also it's between Julian Love, Bobby Wagner, Jordan Brooks. It's between the guys just getting to know each other and communicating and understanding what they're going to get from the formation. And yeah, the Giants were bad. I keep saying that because it's an important caveat, but from what you saw on the tape, there did seem to be a bit more of a meshing. And obviously Cincinnati's the great test for that. So,
right, I like that it's another pocket passer because we can kind of measure their progress against the types of quarterbacks that will, for the most part, stay in the pocket and only leave the pocket when the play breaks down, because Joe will create with his legs, even though he's still recovering from his calf. He looked good last week.
Yeah, he's been eating right, I think.
Yeah. But he will bang out reads and challenge his own windows. So we'll see if what we are observing as improvement week to week, if that continues for another week against a big test. It's a nice bookend to Stafford, right? Obviously, he and Joe Joe Burrow and Matthew Stafford have way different like total arm strength, arm talent, with Stafford having a much more powerful arm. But they have a very similar process that they're very anticipatory. They will throw zone windows all day long. They'll go over the middle on you. So this will be a big test if they've improved there. It looked like they did against the Lions, intermediate middle. Jared Goff loves going over the middle at the second level. I think he only had like one target, and it was the seam route, which isn't exactly an inbreaker, right?
He had one dig, but
okay.
It was the tackle was right there.
Oh, right. And it should have been a pick, right? I mean,
yeah,
Kobe,
it's one of those where like I think it was fairly early. Like if they tried that again, it's probably a pick, but early in the game you don't jump that because you don't know. Like it's best to be cautious.
Right.
Kind of playing the situation in the field as well. Like it was, they're inside their 20 or something or 30. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Griff, finally, do you have a remaining bold prediction after the bye week armed with this extra information?
All right. From when do we do? From week 4 onward, they will have a top 5 defense. They'll end this season 8th in defensive EPA.
That's not bold.
That's bold because I'm saying the whole sample.
Put your nuts on the line.
All right, they'll end this season 6th in defensive EPA.
6th. That's a crap number
overall.
Not 5.
But from weeks 4 on, they'll be like 3rd.
Wow. That's okay. I like it. I like it a lot. Wow. Well, that's kind of similar to my prediction. So I'll quickly live think of a different bold prediction. I think Geno Smith. Hold on. Let me just do some research here, just to check that what I'm saying isn't complete nonsense. I think Geno Smith will be an All-Pro.
All right, that's good enough for me.
Just double down on the Geno thing.
Okay, there you go. Are you?
That's going to be difficult though because he doesn't have the touchdowns. But I'm saying that they really step it up. And they're a good team, and everyone kind of watches Seattle as more of their games get flexed into prime time. And Geno beats good teams, and quarterback wins. I was trying to look up how many quarterbacks actually get voted to All Pro, and that could be second team, by the way. Nice little caveat there. Is it 4? Do you know?
I have no idea. I don't know.
Chat.
I don't pay attention to those things.
Chat. How many quarterbacks got voted to All Pro? Oh no. I think I've messed up. It's 2. I don't think that's going to happen. Damn it.
You don't think he'll be the second best quarterback?
I don't think he'll be the second best.
All right, how about this?
Okay, fine.
Will he receive votes?
Right, thank you. Yeah, he'll get
votes?
an All-Pro vote. There you go.
How many? 3? 5?
7? 2. 2 votes.
Okay, there you go.
There you go.
Smith. Okay, very good. All right.
That wasn't very good. I didn't like that. All right.
Please
thank
clap,
you, chat.
everyone.
No, well, real quick, Kyle, thank you so much for your donation.
It's very kind,
appreciate
Kyle.
your support, Kyle. Thank you very much.
Appreciate
very
that.
Very kind. Sir. Chat, make sure you join us tomorrow live. We've got a special guest, absolute Bengals expert, to preview Cincinnati in more detail. They actually know what they're talking about compared to us, so very excited to do that. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us live. It's been great. Please do like, comment, subscribe. Follow Griff at CMikeSpinMove. Follow me at Matty F. Brown. Make sure you check out SeahawksOnTape.com, where you will find a breakdown soon on Jackson Smith and Jigba, and then also on how Pete Carroll's returning to old concepts with his current 3-4 personnel to fit the run. and how the defensive front kind of works. And make sure you check out Griff's amazing breakdown on Boye Mafe. He's also going to have another one, I think, this week, potentially. And make sure you check out my video on Bobby Wagner. Like, comment, subscribe, 5-star review, download, tell a friend, all that goodness. Have a great rest of your night. It's 5 a.m. Good night.